McKinnley Jackson,
Yep.
6'2", 235 from Texas A&M. Height and length similar to Jerjon Newton. Play style usage completely different.
Can I say we had a official? Here's a crazy one, Joe. You ready for this? Blessed. I don't know if you saw him on the Blesto list in the preseason. I'm not sure if you saw it. McKinnley Jackson, 6'1" and 5. He was 6'1" and 5/8, 320 pounds, which it looks like it on film. He had a first round Blesto grade this past summer. He had a first round Blesto grade, man, like a middle first round grade on McKinnley Jackson. So some people like him a lot, man. Some people like him a whole lot.
I really like him. Do you have any background on him before we dive in on him?
Man, he's a Texas A&M kid. He was a high-star recruit who got a lot of money to go to Texas A&M. He's been playing for 4 years.
Here's my thing with him.
Yep.
Very similar physical profile to Jerjon Newton, as I said. Nowhere near a similar style of player. You're not going to get that same level of pass rush upside from a McKinnley Jackson as you would from Jerjon Newton, which is why I said that they're in a completely different tier.
Sure.
Here's the big thing that I love with him. Not only is he powerful, low to the ground, he's physical. I remember reading this book that was about Ed Orgeron's time when he was the head coach at Ole Miss, and it talked about his whole background being a defensive line coach and finding Warren Sapp and all of these guys that turned out to be really good NFL players. There was another guy at USC, and I'm blanking on his name, that was like huge.
During what time period? When
Orgeron was at USC, when Pete Carroll was there, and if I remember correctly,
wasn't Jarrell Casey?
I don't know if it was Jarrell Casey. It was a kid that they thought was gonna go to Notre Dame, and he ended up going to to USC.
Okay,
it's gonna bug the hell out of me. But he was a smaller, compact guy.
Okay,
and what Orgeron was talking about in this book was very focused on recruiting, and he was saying what I look for in defensive tackles is their first step. I can have a guy that can do anything else well, but if his first step is elite and he's the first guy off the ball, he is put in a completely different category. Mm-hmm. That was the case here for McKinnley Jackson. Is he the most physically gifted of the group? Not particularly, but his first step is so good. It's the only guy so far that I've watched, and I've watched in the 2 years that I've been evaluating prospects as a draft evaluator, that I have really noticed how quickly he comes off the ball. It is really fantastic how fast he is off the ball and how much of a jump he gets on these offensive linemen, which is why I'm pretty high on him for this 2024 class.
Yeah, you know how I am, Joe. So you started talking about that little bit of the defensive tackle, and now I'm like busting my butt to try to figure. Wasn't Mike Patterson? Was it Mike Patterson?
I'm gonna look it up. Okay. I'm gonna look it up. Keep go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. So McKinnley Jackson, like you said, 6'1", 5'8", 320 pounds. Kid is dense, man. Like, he is put together. I agree. Plus first step, explosive in short areas. Not the change of direction player that Jerjon Newton is, for instance, right? So I don't think he has high upside as far as a true pass rusher type. But what I think he can be is he can be a nose one tech in either front. So whether you're a 3-4 team, whether you're a 4-3 base team, whatever.
Sean Cody.
Oh, I remember Sean Cody. He was a good player, man.
He wasn't smaller, but he's still.
They had Sean and Dan Cody on that team, I believe, USC. So they had a couple Codys.
But they thought he was going to go to Notre Dame, and then they ended up flipping him.
Gotcha. Yeah, but McKinnley Jackson, physical, explosive, low center of gravity. He is a prototype nose in today's game. One tech as well. He's not going to give you a lot of sack production, but he's going to give you a decent amount of tackle for loss production. He's going to be able to split a gap occasionally, but he's going to, more than anything, he is going to create offensive line issues on double teams because you said something perfectly. He's explosive, and he's going to get to a spot faster than some offensive linemen at times, which is going to cause a lot of miscommunication, which is going to cause a lot of chaos in the backfield a ton. So I don't think the impact as a every down player is as much as what Jerjon Newton is in comparison. But what he does as far as McKinnley Jackson being a run defender, a guy that can be physical, a guy that can be explosive, a guy that can really create havoc for opposing offensive linemen, I think he is a run game asset on the next level. He's a different body type, and I'm not saying that he's quite going to be to this level, but he gives me like a Dexter Lawrence vibe as far as like Dexter Lawrence just patrols the run game, man. Yep. Doesn't get crazy sack numbers because he takes up a lot of double teams and does a lot of the dirty work inside. And I think that McKinnley Jackson is going to be kind of the same type of player, but obviously he's not 6'4", 340 like Dexter Lawrence is. This is a 6'1" and 5'8", so 6'2", 320-pound guy that is just going to clog up running lanes, be incredibly impactful at the point of attack because he's low center of gravity, powerful, and explosive in short areas.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there where one tech knows Space Eater just to what's the word that you used last cycle that I love? Is it shit brick house or brick shit house?
Brick shit house, ass kicker.
Brick shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, just he is the bouncer
Yep.
that is going to determine who gets past him to get to the second level, and he's just a prototype of like what you want
He
for a space clogger.
he is a linebacker's best friend, is what
Yes.
McKinnley Jackson is, because he's the guy that, wow, why was that linebacker unblocked working the B gap? It's because he just took up, because your nose just took up two blockers because he was just so quick off the football, right? And the double team did not work. He is a linebacker's best friend. He's a second level defender's best friend all the time.
My thing with him, I have a top 50 grade on him, my projection. I had in my mock draft, if you remember, we talked about this a little bit. He to me is a luxury pick. He to me is a guy who a team is like, okay, we've got a lot of other boxes checked, and we just need an auxiliary defensive tackle that is going to boost the profile of the group because we feel confident in our edge rushers. We feel confident in maybe the depth that we have at the position, and we want a premier guy that takes up space.
Sure.
He is somebody, I think it reminds me of Mozzie Smith last year, where Mozzie Smith shouldn't have gone where he did. And I think that McKinnley Jackson is the
McKinnley
example
Jackson's
of a guy
much
that
better player. He's a much better player than Mozzie Smith. Yes.
That's what I'm getting at, is that I would much rather invest in McKinnley Jackson than I would have Mozzie Smith. And they reached on Mozzie Smith because they felt secure about other positions. They missed out on other opportunities. And they're like, you know what? We like this kid in the second round. Let's just take him. That's my thought on probably what happened in that war room. And I think that that's going to happen with McKinnley Jackson, but teams will feel a lot more confident in that decision because, again, I believe that he's a much better player and he just provides a lot of value for a team like I think I had him, no, it wasn't to the Ravens, but like I could see him on a team like the Ravens, the 49ers, one of these teams in the back end of the first round.
Yeah, I agree there. So, I mean, look, I think he's a top 75 player for me, but I agree with you in the sense that could he be a luxury pick and rises up boards because he just gives you a element to the game that you don't necessarily have? Absolutely. I mean, we just saw that with Mozzie Smith. I think it's a great comparison. Can you imagine if the Cowboys would have just taken Keanu Benton instead of Mozzie Smith? Like, that's another conversation for another day. But I think McKinnley Jackson is a very safe player as well, Joe. Like, he's just
yes,
he'll be good.
Like that.
Like, he'll be a good player. Is he going to be all pro, Pro Bowler? Maybe not, but like he's just going to be a good football player on the next level, and you need those types of guys.
I think that's a really good way to summarize him. That high floor, very high floor player that's going to provide a nice impact for your defense, folks. That's going to be a good note to wrap us up on. At Joe DeLeone, at Rise and Draft. Hit that subscribe button wherever you're tuning in. BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.